I found out my boyfriend was cheating on me for our entire relationship. So, I found the girl's fiance and met up for revenge smashing. Now, I guess the joke is on me because I'm pregnant. Posted by you/living temporary 5351. I, 26 female, just found out I'm pregnant after having revenge sex with a fiance, 35 male, of the girl, 30 female, my ex-boyfriend, 32 male, cheated on me with for 2 years. My ex and I met when I was 20, but we were only friends until we started dating 2.5 years ago. I found out last year that my ex had been cheating on me for basically our whole relationship with a girl he met through a mutual friend. I broke things off after I found out and told the girl's fiancé about their affair. He ended up breaking off their engagement and she seemed nonchalant about it until she realized that my ex's money wasn't actually his. My grandma left me a lot after she passed in 2019. And my ex had been flaunting the things I'd gifted him throughout our relationship to her, even going as far as to claim that the house and antique car my grandpa left me in his will were his. It's not something I'm proud of now that I think back on it, but I did allow my ex to walk all over me for the first month or two after I broke things off because I missed him so much. I gave him money and tried to make things work, but I would always get reprimanded by my parents and friends when I ran to them crying after he ghosted me for her. I didn't officially give him up until the girl's ex-fiancé messaged me and told me that she was rubbing it in some of their old friends' faces about how pathetic I was and how desperate I was for my ex, who didn't even give an F about me. I was really upset and asked him if he'd be willing to meet up with me because I knew that if I talked to my parents or friends about this, they'd just lecture me even more. He agreed and the two of us met up at a random food cart place. We ended up spending most of the day just exploring and talking about how we were doing. He also confided in me about his relationship with his ex. They'd known each other for 10 years and had liked each other for most of that time, but he wasn't looking for a relationship because he was focusing on school. He had decided to give them a chance after she drove 12+ hours overnight to see him because they talked on the phone and he said he was feeling under the weather and stressed from how vigorous his residency schedule was. She dropped everything to take care of him, helped clean his place, and made him home-cooked meals after finding out he was surviving off vending machines, snacks, and instant coffee. He told me in detail how he'd never felt so loved and cared for. How after she did that for him, he decided that she was the one, that if this wasn't love, then love wasn't real. Finding out that she had been cheating for the last 2 years made everything click into place. She'd been pushing off getting married, telling all her friends that she was having doubts about him. He had been trying to convince her to go to couples counseling when I broke the news to him that she was sleeping with my ex. I felt like a monster hearing their love story and realizing they didn't get their happy ending because of my ex and me. It messed with my head. We continued to talk from time to time, checking in on each other and meeting up for a quick bite every now and then. We lost contact after the girl my ex cheated on me with somehow convinced him to take her back. I became slightly depressed after he cut me off, explaining that he was still in love with her and wanted to work things out, which meant a clean slate. I found out through some internet snooping that my ex cheated on her, too, which was why she went back to her ex-fiancé. A few months passed and things went back to semi-normal. I started getting therapy and was about ready to put myself back out there at the dating pool again when around New Year's, I got a call from the guy. He was crying and asking if I was available to talk. I of course said yes and out of concern met up with him at his place. He broke down and told me how he found her and my ex in his mom's guest bedroom during Christmas. She'd snuck him in for a quickie during his family's busy holiday party. All hell broke loose when he found them in the guest bedroom after spending 20 minutes looking for her everywhere. We drank a bit and ended up having sex. He apologized and told me that it was a mistake, that he wasn't in his right mind and just wanted revenge sex, but it didn't make him feel any better afterward. I tried messaging him platonically a few times after to see if he was all right, but he blocked me. So, I dropped it and continued with my therapy and life. I went in last week to check with my doctor since I've been getting bad cramps and to get a new prescription refill for my birth control, which I used to help with my PCOS. I had to do the usual test to check for the possibility of pregnancy and was very surprised when it came back positive. I've been sitting on this new knowledge and have been contemplating whether I should tell him, not tell him, or even keep the pregnancy. My doctor informed me that since I am still in the early stages, I'm at a high risk of miscarriage. So, I don't know if I should even be worrying about all of this since there's a chance I could lose it. And then it just seemed like I was trying to grab his attention or something, especially after he made it clear that he wasn't comfortable talking to me anymore after we slept together. I haven't told anyone and have been going crazy because I don't know what to do. Update 1 year 3 months later. A lot has happened since my original post. I know a lot of people were against this, but I went through with the pregnancy, and I am forever thankful for my beautiful baby. I had originally planned to get a termination, but I found myself unable to go through with the appointment. I am pro-choice and always will be. Just because I chose to keep my baby doesn't mean another woman/girl should be forced to keep a pregnancy. They do not wish to continue. Everyone has a right to their own bodies. My parents were very upset with me, and my whole family disowned me. I listened to what some of you said about letting the father know. I'll be referring to him as Dave. After many failed attempts to reach out to him, I decided to go in person. Dave was not happy when I showed up at his place, but when I told him why, he agreed to talk with me. Dave let me know that he'd officially ended things with his ex and wanted to go no contact with me because I was another tie to his past with her, but he was willing to try and figure out a co-parenting plan with me if I agreed to a paternity test first. I of course felt a bit bad about the paternity test part, but agreed to it since we have only been acquaintances that bonded over our trauma. Everything was honestly smooth sailing until I started to spot around the 26-week mark. My OB/GYN explained that while spotting is normal during pregnancy, mine was heavier and my blood sugar/blood pressure also worried them because of gestational diabetes and preeclampsia risk. After a few nights of Dave insisting on sleeping on my couch, I had him help me move some of my things to his place since he lived closer to the hospital. I'm very thankful I decided to semi-move in with him when I did because I went into premature labor at 52 weeks. I'm very thankful to have had Dave and his family as my support system. His mom would come and switch out with him at the hospital and advocated for me whenever I felt washed out or unheard. She helped me both emotionally and physically and stood by me. Dave's mom also helped me work through my emotions when all I wanted was my mom. She and my dad had gone no contact with me after I decided to keep and have my baby. Dave's mom was an absolute godsend. Also, because she's a retired nurse, she started an OB, went to NICU and eventually later settled into lactation before retiring and explained things to me when we found out that my baby had respiratory problems and had SUA, single umbilical artery, which could have been a factor in why I went into premature labor. She stayed with Dave and me so she could help me with pumping since I wasn't able to produce milk and encouraged me. When I felt like such a failure for not being able to take care of my son when he needed me most. She drove me to and from the hospital while my son was in the NICU because I was healing and so mentally slickly exhausted. I really and truly believe that I didn't fall into deep postpartum depression because she held me and helped me with each step and was always so patient with me even when I wasn't patient with myself. Dave's mom would constantly remind me that nothing was our fault and no one did anything wrong. It's just that everyone is faced with hardships in life, and this was one we'd worked together to get through. My son graduated from the NICU and came home a month after I did. Dave's mom visited us often and helped with him since Dave and I are first-time parents. Dave's dad joked that he felt like she and I had the baby together and that he and Dave were both just background characters that make guest star appearances every now and then since Dave was working so much to build more PTO. And his mom wouldn't bring his dad along when she'd come visit and she didn't want him to disturb me and the baby with his loudness. Dave's dad is hard of hearing and can sometimes be unaware of his volume, so he took no offense to it. Dave's siblings and family members posted a lot about our son because he was the first grandchild and first baby in a long time. Dave's youngest cousin is 17, turning 18 this year. Somehow, someone must have shared a photo or something, but pictures of us reached my family, and my parents demanded I let them meet my son. Dave was supportive of whatever I chose to do and said he'd agree to them meeting him if that's what I wanted. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided that I wanted to talk to my parents before letting them meet my son. When we met up to talk, my parents were offended that I didn't bring my son with me and left him with Dave's parents. They said some really hurtful things and then my dad started to question when Dave was going to ask him for permission for us to get married since we didn't already have a shotgun wedding while I was pregnant. I was okay with them insulting me since I'd grown up with it and was used to it. But once my parents put their target on Dave and his family, I became upset and decided it was time for us to leave. My parents did try to petition for legal visitation rights. Honestly, before this whole ordeal, I didn't even know that grandparents' rights existed, but were denied because my son is still very young. And because both Dave and I are very much on good terms, are living in the same household, and they couldn't find or prove that there was any danger to our son's well-being. My family did try to reach out to us and claim that we were horrible people for denying my parents their grandchild, but no one ever seemed to be able to make a peep when Dave's family would defend us and point out that my family had been the one to disown me and that no one cared to see if I was okay until after I had the baby and everything was handled. Dave's mom and my mom got into a verbal, almost physical altercation after my mom made false reports to CPS and called the police to do multiple welfare checks on us. My mom was given a warning by the police for harassing us after one specific incident where she threw a tantrum and caused a scene when the police found nothing wrong in the welfare check and refused to listen to her demands to have my son temporarily taken away from us and put in her custody for his safety. Dave and I currently have restraining orders pending against my parents and certain family members. One of the reasons I decided to update is because about 2 months ago, a friend of Dave's asked him out to have some drinks and they ran into his ex-fiance, who later messaged him to tell him that she regretted the way they ended it and how she was very hurt when she heard that we had a baby together, especially with it being so soon after their relationship. Dave wouldn't talk to me about how he felt. And when I asked him, he just brushed me off or switched the conversation to a topic about our son that he knew would distract me. I noticed Dave pulling away from me and how our relationship became a bit awkward and strained after their run-in and her message, because I know he still has feelings for her and I am afraid that he might feel trapped with me and our son. I also noticed that the drama with my family has made Dave and his family less patient with me and my son. During Mother's Day, I overheard a few of his family members make comments to Dave about me being at their family barbecues since I was just my son's mom and not really part of the family. Dave just shrugged and said I didn't have anyone else to spend the day with. With how tense things have been, I've been thinking about moving out and back into my place. I stayed with Dave at his place after I gave birth. But now that our son is slightly older and I am healed, I want to give Dave back some space so that he can start dating again if he wants to, and to give him back some more bachelor time when I have our son. I want to find a way to approach me moving out and thus making a co-parenting plan without making things more awkward or possibly ruining the relationship I have with Dave and his parents. I don't want them to feel like I'm not grateful or anything, but I do want to go back to work and get my life back on track so that I can provide my portion of needs for my son and not depend on his family for more than appropriate. Second update, 4 days later. I've been trying my best not to check my phone or Reddit since I'm honestly a little overwhelmed right now. I want to let you all know that I did talk to Dave and he was against me moving out. He also wasn't willing to talk about the situation or how he's been acting after running into his ex. And he said I was bringing up something that didn't matter since we were supposed to be discussing my desire to move out. I haven't said anything about what I heard on Mother's Day and I don't think I'm going to mention it since I feel really bad. It was meant to be a private conversation, so I don't think anyone meant anything harmful. During our conversation, Dave let me know that maybe I'm just overthinking or overreacting and that I shouldn't make big decisions like moving out. He also talked about how because our son is a pre-I, he'd prefer if one of us stayed at home until he turned 2 to 3 years old so he could catch up with his peers. Then once he started prec, we could go back to work again, but I feel like he's been trying to avoid me since the conversation. Though I could also be overthinking like he said. Still, after reading some of the comments, I do feel like my feelings are valid. But I'm also not sure anymore. I want to do what's best for my son. I know people already think I'm so dumb and that I shouldn't have had him, but I am trying to be better for my son. I feel like he's my only family left and I really want to try to do what's best for him. Top/relevant comments. Commenter, you are not dumb and you're probably overthinking things a little. You had a lot happen in a short period of time. It's understandable to feel overwhelmed and a bit vulnerable. Do you have friends to talk to or have you considered therapy? It could help to talk through some of your thoughts and see things from a new perspective or get advice on how to approach certain topics. You can make it clear that you don't want to overstay your welcome without revealing that you overheard a conversation. But to be honest, it was a gathering and making a comment was a risk they took. You might feel better bringing up that you don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, especially yourself. So perhaps setting boundaries is in order. Plus, you might have heard something out of context or read into it more than intended. I feel bad that your own family is so horrible. Is there no one on your side who isn't so vile? Ops response. As sad and pathetic as this sounds, I don't really have friends. Most of my friends were through my family or they didn't agree with me having my son with Dave. Not only that, but a large majority of my friends are still friends with my ex, and we drifted apart because I found out that many of them knew about his cheating, but kept quiet about it since they had known him longer/better. I was going to therapy, but because I was so busy after giving birth, I haven't gone in a while. I do plan on going back to therapy, but since I'm not currently working, I also don't have the best health insurance and everything would have to be paid in full out of pocket. So, I've been putting it off, especially since I've already dipped so much into my savings. Commenter 2, if you are not in a romantic relationship with Dave, I think you should plan to move out. Get some advice from your pediatrician about how much intensive care your baby needs and plan accordingly. On the plus side, you don't have to move immediately and you can take time to make the best arrangements. I don't think that 2 to 3 years at home is an automatic requirement for a pre-I baby. And you have to take care of your own needs and future in addition to the needs of your child. Dave really doesn't get to dictate what you do here. Ops response, I have honestly never really thought about how I feel about Dave and I don't know how he feels about me. Everything has been one thing after another and I've never sat down to think about it. But I do know that I care for him and respect him as a father. Dave is really good with our son and does his best when it comes to being a dad. As for my son's health, he's much better and doesn't need much, but his doctor has warned us that we have to adjust and watch for his milestones to make sure he's growing and developing at an appropriate rate. I think that's why Dave decided on 2 to 3 years, because the doctor told us that once our son is around that age, he should be caught up with his peers and that we shouldn't have to make adjustments to his milestones when evaluating his growth and development. That's why I do want to go back to work. I'm sure daycare teachers and staff, also his parents, since his mom is a retired nurse, are trained to help monitor or watch out for milestones, so I'm not as worried. But I can also see what Dave means and where he may be coming from. Third update, 8 months, 3 weeks later. I don't think anyone really cares for this update, but I'm going to put it here for anyone who may want to know. After the last time I posted, things were a bit awkward and tense between Dave and me for a few weeks until Father's Day. I honestly didn't feel comfortable going to his aunt's house for their family gathering because of the conversation I'd overheard during Mother's Day, but I went because it was Dave's first Father's Day after we'd had our son the previous year. I initially didn't want to bring up the topic because it was supposed to be a good day, but Dave was actually the one who brought up the topic after we'd returned from his aunt's house. Dave confessed about the Mother's Day conversation with his cousins and said they grilled him during Father's Day as well because he'd brought me with him to their aunt's house. Dave apologized for making me worry and for not standing up for me when his family said things about me behind my back, but told me that he honestly didn't want me to move out and for us to split our son's custody, especially because it was comforting to know that he was going to be coming home to the both of us. After spending a long day at work, I told him I didn't want to ruin the day and that we could talk about things the next day, but Dave was adamant about us clearing the air because he was tired of how uncomfortable things were between us. Ironically, Dave told me he was afraid of me feeling trapped with him, especially after seeing how traumatizing it was for me to go into premature labor, deal with our son in the NICU/being separated from him, and he'll postpartum. Dave also said he felt worse about everything after seeing how my family treated me, and then how some members of his own family held it against me. He told me that although he himself didn't mean to do this in any way, he felt like I was trapped and isolated with only him to depend on. He made sure to make it crystal clear that while he would want us to try and work towards a relationship to see where things go, he also didn't want me to feel pressured or feel like I had to stay with him if I wasn't happy or didn't want to. He agreed that he would rather us be on good terms for our son's sake. And if that meant having a friendship-like relationship with mutual respect for one another, then he was okay with that as well. We talked for a while about everything and cleared the air of any questions. Dave let me know that he genuinely didn't feel anything for his ex-fiance and that the reason for him becoming distant had nothing to do with me. It was because he'd had a life crisis when he thought about how different his life was compared to how he'd wanted and thought it would be. Dave and I came to an understanding that my son and I would continue to stay with him and I would get a part-time job to slowly ease my way back into working. Things were rocky and a little odd to navigate at first, but Dave's parents helped us a lot with our son when I started job hunting and got a part-time position working at a local bank branch near Dave's place. Dave and I slowly started to explore our relationship to see where things would go between us. It was weird for both of us because of how we'd met and started out, but within 3 to 4 months, things got much better. I moved my things from our son's room into Dave's. Our son had a hard time initially when Dave and I began to show more affection, hugging and quick, innocent kisses with one another because he was a bit jealous of how close we were since he was used to us only showering our affections onto him and not each other. But he's gotten used to it now. Dave's family has said in a playful, joking manner that we should give our son a sibling to play and grow up with since no one else from Dave's family has kids. But I try to avoid the conversation of when we'll have more kids. I took some of your advice and joined mommy and me groups. So, my son does have some playmates his age, but I do sometimes find myself feeling guilty for how lonely he may be when it's just him and us at home. This past Valentine's, while in the heat of the moment, Dave did make a few comments about wanting to get me pregnant again. But when I mentioned and clarified it with him afterward, he said it was just him being really into it at the moment. Dave and I have previously had a conversation and agreed that because of my PCOS and how unbalanced my hormones are, I wouldn't go back on birth control because of how I've been feeling much better after the birth of our son. So, we are using the calendar method as contraception on my end, but I have tried asking Dave if he'd be willing to use condoms. He's made it clear that he doesn't like them and that it's completely off the table for him because he doesn't like the feeling of being constricted in latex. I know he's clean and so am I, but we've had 2 previous pregnancy scares. There are times when Dave forgets to pull out. But he's assured me that if we get pregnant again, it wouldn't change anything except that we'd have another baby and I might have to quit my job and stay home again. But I know I'm not ready for that yet. Our son is only just turning 2 later this year, and it's already so hard juggling just one child with our schedules and jobs. I don't know how we'd manage with 2 kids. Dave and I are in a wonderful place right now in our life and relationship. So, I don't want to keep bringing up contraceptives or anything because I don't want to ruin the peace. I've been contemplating possibly going back on the pill or looking into other options I could use, but I'm scared to put my body through a whirlwind of hormones and put a toll on my mental health again. If anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. Thank you all so much for your support and kind words. My life has truly changed for the better, and I am forever grateful and thankful to every one of you for your words of advice and wisdom. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I don't know who in this exhausting saga displayed the most sheer audacity. 1. The ex-fiance who snuck in her affair partner to hook up in her fiance's family's house at Christmas. 2. Op's family for cutting her off when she chose to keep the baby, then acting outraged when they weren't allowed to meet or take ownership of the baby. Or 3. Op's baby daddy for convincing her not to be on birth control, not to use condoms, and to continually not pull out even though she said she doesn't want to get pregnant. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more story like this.